Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of season 2 of Brand Talkies, a Katapiti show where we dive into the world of marketing strategy and beyond. I'm your host, Tamanna Chanana, and today's guest brings a unique blend of expertise in product strategy, tech ventures, and impactful GTM execution. With us today is Parth Chopra, currently director at ADP Ventures, who has an impressive career journey from the fast-paced halls of Bain and Company to leading key product initiatives at ADP. Parth's work is redefining how businesses tackle go-to-market strategies in today's competitive landscape. But Parth is much more than his GTM playbook. To kick things off, I have a few questions to get to know him better. But firstly, thank you so much for taking out time, Parth, to be a part of this amazing podcast. And I'm glad you made it to the show.
Tamanna, so glad to be here. I've actually learned a lot from the folks you hosted on BT before. So glad to have the opportunity to give back.
Amazing, amazing. I'm sure our listeners will be quite eager to know about all the GTM hacks that you have implemented so far. And there's a lot in store.
I'll try my best.
Yeah. No pressure.
No pressures. How do you say that?
All right. Let's start with a buzzer round. This is basically a one word or a sentence where we ask you to just make it fun, quirky for the listeners to have fun. So, to start with, Pat, you have led some incredible projects in tech and strategy. If you could trade places with any business icon for a day, maybe Elon Musk or Satya Nadella, who would it be? And
Probably not Elon. I think he's such a successful entrepreneur. Like Skylink is amazing. SpaceX is doing so well. He's also one with many dichotomies. I think probably Melinda Gates. So I think Bill and her have given away about what $50 billion or so of their wealth through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and advocating for women's rights and numerous health initiatives. So yeah, Melinda Gates.
good to hear from someone who's living in US and open to even give it to the world.
Hey, you UK folks have too much of a high horse, yeah. Tamanna, what's going on?
I'll not go to the political end of this because we all know in UK it never ends. Neither rain,
Fair.
neither politics. So yes. All right. Your career spans consulting, nonprofit, and now corporate ventures. Have you ever considered taking a totally different career route, like opening a cafe or being a travel blogger or something?
Yeah, who hasn't, yeah, Tamanna? Dreamt of getting into politics, dreamt of the UN. Yeah, show me all those dreams.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've done a few 180s, like from finance to liberal arts to painting to music, and I've like tried to start a career in music as well. I founded a not-for-profit Manzil Mystics, so big shout out to Anurag Hoon and Rashmi and the Manzil Mystics team that teaches thousands of kids music in Delhi even today. But watching you in action, Anna, today with your podcasting hustle gives me a lot of energy. So, what do you feel about a different career? Is it like a cafe in Goa?
Not really. Maybe in Spain sometime. I think there's a lot that we can learn from different cultures. Bringing in an
Yeah,
Indian fusion of Spanish world, maybe. You never
love
know.
that. Love that.
Okay. So the last question for this round. Since you work so much on data-driven strategies, have you ever thought of using data analytics in your personal life, like tracking the best times for workout or running ABM tests on your playlist? Has that ever happened?
So, I'm about to leave for my office after this call, and I'm going to save about a minute or two
Yeah.
on my 10-minute walk to work every day because I have timed the traffic lights exactly as they should be in New York City.
Yeah.
Uh, I also actually, with a heavy heart, gave my personal finance data to Rocket Money, and they identified a lot of subscriptions that I need to cancel, and they negotiated one utility bill for me. So I did use like data company to manage my personal finances,
That's
if
nice.
that counts.
And that's the quirkiest thing I've ever heard from an Indian, to be honest. We all think we are CAs of our own finance management thing, but it's too good to for me.
Yeah, no, try it. Try not just Rocket Money, a lot of competitors who do the same thing.
Okay, that's nice. I'll give a hit for sure. Maybe some.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we have had some fun. Let's dig into the core of your expertise. You have had an impressive journey, and I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear your take on GTM strategies in tech world. So let's get into it. Since you have moved from consulting to managing products at ADP, now overseeing partnership and strategy, what is the biggest mindset shift you have had to make in transitioning through these roles?
Yeah, many mindset shifts. Great question. So, in consulting, a lot of the work is theoretical, framework based, methodology based. As a part of a tech company doing GTM and selling to actual clients, you got to focus on practical applications, got to prioritize execution, prioritize real world impact, not just like strategic recommendations at the 37,000 foot level. For example, like a consultant making a strategy for Google could say, hey, separate out your ads product and make a video ads product for that incorporates data from physical mediums or impressions. And a strategy professional can basically have Google's dev build this to quality and within a 6 month timeline before a competitor does. So that's basically the first question a stat professional would ask them working for Google. Can you even do it? Because often large companies take way longer to build products than just having making the strategy is easy, but building it and solving complete problems fully is really hard. And that's where partnerships or even M&A come into play if there are more nimble startups doing that already. So it's basically moving from theoretical to practical execution, moving from thinking about build to actually building or partnering or M&A. Secondly, I also feel like there's an agile customer centric thinking that consulting may focus on, for example, internal metrics or stakeholder goals. In tech, the final customer and understanding their needs, understanding creating a user experience for them, or understanding market demands is really crucial. So again, like the example of this would be in consulting, you create an 80% version of your deliverable in 20% of your time, 80/20. So the known thing that starting day one, at a consulting firm, right? So there's, which basically means that this is a structured approach. It lacks the depth and executability. You're working backwards from the CEO's vision, but not at internal go-to-market or internal strategy, right? Where you work backwards from a customer, understand their journey better, and how you pilot something needs to continuously change in an agile way. So continuing the same example of an ads team wanting to launch this YouTube ads product, right? As a consultant, you would work backwards from the CEO and GM of the business. But this is a heavily matrixed organization where you need to speak to an implementation lead, a product lead, a legal head, a sales head to create that product. And of course, the owner of YouTube ads. So that cross functionality really hits you as an internal GTM professional. And of course, relationship building and networking is more genuine and authentic internally, where in consulting, it's often like transactional. So those meaningful connections that you build can lead to collaboration or support or even evangelization of your product, which becomes really important for you to have your partner teams thump on the table and back for you and back for your product. So those are the mindset shifts that I've had to make with the transition of the role.
I'm sure there would be a lot more. It's too good to learn from you. And especially people usually tend to move from a product-based company or a service-based company to a consulting. But coming from a other way around, it would be quite difficult. So, all right, there's a follow-up question to this. Parth, in your expertise, what steps do you take to deeply understand and validate customer needs before building a GTM strategy? Could you share an example where this approach influence the product or service, maybe at ADP or anything that you want to share from your consulting background?
Yeah, great question. So I feel the customer needs need to be understood even before you develop a product, not necessarily before you start building a GTM strategy. So I've seen two scenarios where go-to-market teams are looped in before the product build starts, and the second scenario is after a product build starts. And I feel like it's almost always beneficial to loop in GTM teams before a product build starts. Unless, of course, the product teams have very deep expertise or insight on the customer journeys, which sometimes they don't. But, zooming out, yeah, there are obvious ways
Yeah.
to research customers
Mhm.
and for it to feed into your go-to-market strategy by understanding their needs, right? I've actually felt that just spending a day with the client, seeing their user flows,
Yeah.
speaking to them, mapping their customer or user journey, that can be really beneficial. Uh, the obvious things here are also like do your market research, right? Do a
Right.
quantitative research, survey all decision makers or buyers in your industry. So the CFO, CHRO, Chief Product Officer, whatever it may be, if it's a B2B product, right? Uh, what percentage have a competitor? What percentage of those people want your product or a product like yours after you describe it? What percentage of them are in your serviceable area? In your industry, do they have good retention rates? What is their NPS of the competitor, right? Is it low or is it high? There are, of course, research as well that you could do, like focus group discussions, which are actually more popular in physical products like Pepsi or Conf. But tech is like more dynamic in getting feedback, more agile. Then, of course, you could beta test, you could pilot test your go-to-market strategy and compare it to success metrics. But giving an example, I recently was finding it hard to price
Okay.
a SaaS product. It could have been actually given to the user at any price point, right? So I have a pricing example on how I understood customer needs. So it could have been priced at free, basically, a free SaaS product to very expensive. And the demand would obviously, in this case, mirror the demand curve. So a low demand at a high price point and vice versa. In general, I feel companies in this dilemma do maximize their revenue.
Right.
But the product I was selling was very unique. So it had a business funded element. So a funding that the business provides separately. So I was curious, does a free or low cost reduce that funding element of the business or increase it? Do they see this product as free because it is low quality or not? So we had to undertake a pricing analysis, test the willingness to pay. So we used a conjoint analysis technique, which basically showed these decision makers, these buyers of technology,
Right.
a series of price points. So, two questions at the same time. Would you pick this option or that option? And this option is, free with, let's say, $100 of funding. And this option is, you know, not free, very expensive, but with $20 of funding. And there were like 50 such questions thrown, and we tracked which option they would pick every time. So this basically simulated the demand curve, and we found out after which price point demand falls rapidly and found out the unique relationship between technology price and funding, and that helped us understand the customer needs and price the product better.
That's good because often I've seen what SaaS products tend to do is they'll either go ahead for subscription-based model or they'll do a freemium kind of thing for a while and then it's done and dusted. But it's so good that it's such an innovative approach that you followed. Awesome.
Right.
Given your extensive work with the workplace transformation and people tech, where do you see the biggest opportunities for GTM to evolve in this space over the next few years?
Yeah, people tech is like really evolving. So number one is like just in B2B sales, right? Companies have on-ground sales teams covering entire target markets, countries, maybe even like the globe.
Yeah.
That's easier said than done unless you're like a Fortune 500 company, like right, period. But partnerships in B2B sales can really help you post-sell your products.
Okay.
So partner sales teams often operate on a commission basis, roll call basis, where you have combined ownership. And you could also have combined ownership of the products, right? You could invest in the partner or the partner could invest in you. You also build trust through these partnerships. Another way to sell through sales teams is through bundling. So Microsoft is actually particularly notorious for bundling their products in the US. And of course, one is through integrations, and that's actually a completely different arena, which I'll get into now. So one is B2B sales, the other is through deepening distribution. I think distribution is the next biggest play. Without distribution, even the best products can't do much. So Rippling, for example, is in people tech. It's a new entrant. It's a disruptor that is building deep integrations throughout their entire HR tech ecosystem. So think about distribution where worker provisioning could be done through your Microsoft Office suite. Rippling could have a laptop distribution hub that does it. Think about finance and expense management, where integrations connect your accounting software with your payroll, with recruitment, through so QuickBooks or Xero or your expense management is connected. You have payroll integrations with time and benefits. Think about having an ATS, an applicant tracking system integrated, background checks integrated. So if a company uses Rippling in this case, it will only go for providers who integrate seamlessly with Rippling. So now it's a competitive advantage of distribution, of being integrated with Rippling, that has network effects, that helps you acquire customers, that enhances your product stickiness. And lastly, I feel like the marketing tech stack is expected to expand so much. With AI can really help small businesses develop those deep insights that are today reserved only for enterprise customers. Because it's hard for these small businesses to have marketing experts on their payroll. So self-serve AI tools like chatbots or dashboards that collate data from different streams that business owners wouldn't, these small business owners who have like 5 employees, they're not marketing experts. They don't want to devote more than like 1-2 hours a week to effectively remarket. So these dashboards or these self-serve AI tools in the future can really help them score leads or convert clients or build data-driven GTM strategies. So that'll be a big shift that's coming super soon.
These are some really good insights. And following up to what you mentioned about Microsoft is notorious for bundling. Could you elaborate on that? I'm quite picky in that sense. So sorry.
Yeah. No, of course. So bundling is basically you sell something and then you add more products on top of that, and the customer ends up paying less than they otherwise would have a la carte for those products, right? In a sense, it's good for the customer, but Microsoft has done it often in an anti-competitive way, and companies like Microsoft have done it also in an anti-competitive way. There were numerous legal regulatory challenges in the 90s where Microsoft, for example, bundled Internet Explorer with Windows. So Mark Zuckerberg's testimonies in front of Congress actually look pale in front of what Bill Gates did in the 90s. And the playbook was simple, right? They see a great product like Netscape, which was a browser, Lotus, which was like Excel, or Evernote, which is the note-taking tool, or even Slack, which is happening today. So they developed the same product, added to the Windows or Office bundle at no cost. And this bundling gives them immense reach. For example, cost-conscious companies no longer needed to pay separately for Slack, given they had Teams pre-installed. So with their bundle. So this created stickiness in the ecosystem, created widespread usage, which they could eventually increase costs of the bundle after a few years.
That's good.
So what they've done now, so they are giving Teams pre-installed, people are moving away from Slack, and 2 years down the line, they will increase the cost of Teams. So it's a bit monopolizing, but it's also a great way to give your customers more and broaden your ecosystem by forming alliances and bundles if you do it right.
That's how Fortune 100 companies plug and play themselves everywhere, and that's how they're right. Lastly, you have led teams through iterative GTM processes. What advice do you have for teams working to stay agile while pursuing ambitions, long-term goals? I would love to know that.
Yeah, ambitious long-term goals are great to have. You should have them. I feel like for tracking, you should create flexible milestones, shorter milestones that can be measured, adjusted. So rather than like rigid waterfall annual deadlines, do it quarterly or do it like bi-monthly checkpoints. I feel like agile GTM teams also need to emphasize a culture of learning or a culture of perfection. So conducting regular retrospectives, and I'd love to learn from you if you do that too, Tamanna, to capture lessons that you've learned over the past month or few months
Yeah.
and adjust your strategy rather than assign blame, right? I actually learned about retrospectives and started incorporating them while I was still a product manager with my dev team. And cross-functional collaboration, of course, is also how you stay ahead and pursue long-term goals, right? Break away from your silos, have bi-weekly syncs with product, sales, implementation, and service if you're in that kind of a business. And of course, marketing, that's the first one. I think scope creep, I'm not sure if you've also noticed this when you're working with a small team, a startup, on an ambitious project. People just keep throwing more and more things at you, right? Increasing your product
Okay.
roadmap. So establish guardrails, avoid scope creep, think of your product roadmap,
Yeah.
think about the capacity that you have,
Yeah.
and work backwards from it. So establishing those guardrails is really important. But would love your sense as well, Tamanna.
See, to be honest, for me, it's about team first and then working with cross-functional stakeholders. So I start with building a kudo board for my team itself, where this is something which is for me to understand who's achieving what's from their personal learning to their professional learning. I pen it down together. And then what was the impact from a stakeholder point of view too? It's not just about the team, it is about the cross-functional work that they are doing with other teams as well, and vice versa. So I collaborate that, and every quarter I make sure that is being brought out and given that kind of credibility also parallelly, not just working in silos and making sure that this is something that I'm just doing it within the team, but I make sure that the other stakeholders are also being appreciated for the kind of efforts and the cross-functional collaboration that we do, and that should also be highlighted. So yeah.
Love it. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, amazing. I think this was an amazing conversation, and I'm sure it would be a great conversation for the others as well to understand that, hey, if different companies and these model can work for one, they can also do something similar for themselves, especially from a SMB point of view. I'll say they usually look out for something like this. So I think these were some amazing insights. Thank you, Parth.
So great chatting, Tamanna. I'm glad I was able to help. Thanks for your time.
I'm sure our listeners would learn a lot. Your insights on GTM strategies and tech-driven transformation are incredibly valuable for anyone looking to innovate in this space. Thank you once again. Thank you to our
Pleasure's
listeners.
all mine.
Yeah. Thank you to our listeners for tuning into Brand Talkies, Akka the PT show. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment if you enjoyed today's conversation. Until next time, keep building, strategizing, and transforming into the marketing space.